Hi, I'm rickdior, and this video will be about fills, fill-ins, introductory fills in several styles. So when I teach this to my students, I like to divide it up into separate categories. The first one being just general fills, so those would happen maybe after a 3-bar phrase. So you're playing 3 bars and it's playing a fill. That's the first way that I explain it. So in the beginning, that little demo you saw me switching between kind of a rock thing and then into an Afro Cuban Sango thing and then into a Brazilian Samba and then into sort of a funk thing and then into a jazz thing. And if you noticed, each one of those styles has a different type of fill, ranging from very basic and simple in the rock stuff and getting more and more complex until you get to the jazz stuff, and then that would be the most notey stuff. Not all the time, but I was just trying to do a little demo there to show you how the different styles have different types of fills. So the first fill we'll talk about is the lead-in fill. So this is a fill that if you're starting the tune, you would just count it off and play a fill and the band would come in. That's really, really, really common in all styles. A lot of times, even in jazz, you'll have a 4-bar solo. It's not really a fill, but a solo up front, and then you start the tune. So the most important thing with lead-in fills is that you are stating the time. So the band, or whoever you're playing with, knows where the time is. So you've got to keep it kind of simple when you're doing a lead-in fill. So there's a couple ways to do this. One way is just count it like I did there in that demo. So I'll put the click on for this whole thing so you have something to relate to here time-wise. And we're at 120. So if I put the click on, 1, 2, 3. So that's the simplest way to get a band in. Just you're counting 1, 2, 3, and then you hit on 4. All right, and you know I've probably used that thousands of times in sessions and live performances and things like that. So you want to master that first, and that needs to be real decisive, really big pop on 4, whatever you're going to do. There's different things you can do. You can do just the regular flam, which is what I did there. Go 1, 2, 3. So that's 2 bass drums, 2 toms. Okay, so there's a lot of different ways to do this kind of thing. It's no secret. It's been done by thousands of drummers. Now you can also do more. You can do a whole bar. So instead of counting, you can do this. So that's also common. Some bands I've played with or groups don't like to hear someone going 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is an obvious fill. And again, I'm doing flams to thicken the sound. You can play it around the toms. Anything that's really powerful that's going to introduce the tune. You don't want to be wimpy when you're doing this because it's going to come in with the full force. So you don't want to do... You got to hit the drums, okay, especially live. It's part of the magic of playing any kind of heavy rock music, anything. You know, if you're playing punk, you don't. So those are, you know, kind of wild, almost adventurous, I'd say, kind of fills, which is all energy, all attitude. So the music you're playing has to reflect the fills, the attitude of those fills you're doing. So let's talk about how to develop these little openings here. The first thing you want to do is do all tempos. So a lot of times you'll have to do a slow tempo. So let's say we were doing a blues. Dotted quarter equals 60, so we're going to be, this is the groove, so. So a good way to practice this is just to do as much as your imagination can come up with. Now, of course, you've got to listen to music. If you don't listen to music, you don't really know what's been done, you know, transcribe, write things out. I spent my entire childhood into my young adulthood transcribing hundreds and hundreds of tunes. And a lot of those involved fills and lead-ins. So doing that, you get a vocabulary. So if you put that metronome there, you're just practicing at one tempo, all right? And you're practicing a particular style, like a blues. And then you practice lead-ins. You could think of this as a one-bar fill, too. So it would sound like this. So again, I started simple and I got more and more complex. There's types of blues. There's jazz blues, there's rock blues, all kinds of things. So those different kinds of fills get applied to those styles, all right? And then let's say we boost up the tempo a little more and we do like a shuffle. Now again, you see how I'm subdividing that click to make sure I'm even. That's something you definitely want to do. So in that style, you could have a lead-in that would be like this. And for the shuffles, it's very common to have that pretty fast, like this. You see how those can either be one-bar fills or lead-ins. That's the best way to practice that. Again, the most important thing is that your lead-in states the time clearly. Once you're into the tune and the whole band's playing, you have a little more leeway to do that. Now let's look at some Latin styles. So Afro Cuban, Brazilian, those are the two big categories here. So those are a little bit different. And you could be normally the musicians are very attuned to the time in those settings. So a lot of times if you're playing with a percussionist, you would do sort of a duo lead-in. That's possible to do that as well. But this style revolves around open flams, triplets, a different kind of feel, so more like timbale playing. Let's put this back to 120 and put the quarter note on. So 1, 2. All right, so anything that's revolving around the clave, so you're filling in with the bass drum. And then just kind of open flams. And again, that's kind of a Latin fusion, a heavy kind of thing, all right? If you're playing with a conga player, you'd play lighter. definitely light on that left hand. You don't want to interrupt what they're doing on the drums. But let them carry it. Let them play more fills if you're the drum set player. A lot of times in that kind of style, I'll just do this. And let them play the fills. So you don't have to play together. It ends up being a mess if you do that. Now for the Brazilian styles, I usually like to do my fills within the groove. So in other words, if I'm doing this, all right, so I will play on the toms or whatever while I'm still carrying that ride cymbal, especially if there's no other percussionists. I'll do that because we don't want to just have that time stop in that style, all right? Another way to do it is to get the hi-hat going like this. Lots of open triplets, basically related to batucada, which is this. So a lot of drummers would consider that one big fill, but that's using the toms like that is part of that style. Those represent the surdos, the three different pitched kind of bass drums. So you're mimicking the style there when you're playing your fills. All right. Now for jazz, this you know, there's so many great different jazz drummers with so many great different styles. You could play as busy as you want or as simple as you want, but when you're doing the lead-ins, play pretty simple. A lot of times I'll just do some rapping like, so in other words, that would be something like this. 1, 2. The fills are actually part of the comping there. So practice that. In other words, you're setting up the flow of the piece. And a lot of times those kinds of devices can be used for trading 4s, 8s, and even soloing on the form. Again, you can reference, I have a whole series on jazz soloing in here, and you can reference that, you know, playing Charlie Parker tunes, all those kinds of things I do in those videos. So you see now, all those styles have different things. Now for funk, what I like to do is combine all those things that I just did. So that can get a little more notey. So if we'll go back to our original tempo, so you have a reference here, 120. So I'll play a few of these fills. 1, 2. All right, so you see there I'm playing kind of funk fills. I'm not just playing all out toms or anything like for the rock stuff. I'm filling in with the groove kinds of things. that's very common for that style for the filling. Now I know this is a little bit complicated because I'm going through so many styles, but like I said, the main thing is to listen to records. So for funk, listen to Tower of Power. Listen to James Brown. A lot of that R&B funk, okay? Those are great. The Meters, listen to Ziggy play. All these different kind of influences will teach you different fills. You listen to these guys, these great drummers play these kinds of fills. You will pick them up. You'll pick up the sound. And a lot of it is drum tuning and the sizes of the drums. Now, I'm using this rock kit because I happen to have it set up now. And it's definitely not good for all styles like jazz and funk and Latin, but it's great for rock. But the kit has a lot to do with the kind of fills you're playing. So for funk, I'll usually use a high-pitched, almost piccolo snare drum, tight-sounding 20-inch bass drum, smaller cymbals, very thin cymbals, and that's what gives you that sound. So some of it is the equipment, I have to say. All right, now, so let's show you some things you can work on in my book before we leave today. So page 129 has some pretty complex fills that can be used for all of these styles. So rock, funk, maybe not jazz, maybe not swing stuff, but Latin stuff. So this is a complicated page, but what you should do is do 4 bars of time, or 3 bars of time, and then the last bar will be one particular bar of this. So we'll just do the first line, couple lines, and I'll play 3 bars of time, and then I'll do each measure separately. 1, 2, 3. So I started simple and I started playing more and more funky, but doing these fills every 4th bar. These work great. They are hard, and you can hear me play this whole thing on the play along that comes with it. But you want to do 1 bar at a time for these fills. That works really good. Now you can also use it as a solo, or you can do like 4 bars at a time. I'll play the first 4 bars for you as a solo. And you see I'm playing around the drums like that. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Kind of like a Terry Bozzio, Frank Zappa thing there. All right, so it is a little notey, a little more complicated, but these are really cool kinds of fills. Don't try it on the bandstand unless you're really comfortable playing these with really good time. And then you can also go back to, we've done this section quite a bit, but page 121, where we're doing this first stuff. You could do little 4-bar solos or treat each bar as a fill, and the broken time ones work great. In other words, on page 123, they work great faster, like a quarter note equals 130. 1, 2. They're fantastic for this kind of thing, R&B, funk, things like that. All right, so the kind of goal here is to listen to as much music as you can, transcribe fills, transcribe entire tunes, solos, and then you'll get a vocabulary. But it does take a lot of technique to do this. Always use a click, so you're playing your fills and lead-ins in time. So I'll play a little for you, and then we'll call it a day.